David Jordan is the private advisor to CEOs, specialising in creating results through strategic innovation. Welcome to this week's segment.
So one of the biggest challenges around innovation at the moment is fear. And fear is not just about a fear of looking stupid, but there's a range of fear issues. There's the fear of sounding like that you don't have knowledge about it. There's a fear of people not accepting you because you're saying things that just is outlandish to them. There's a fear that you're going to be held accountable for mistakes. So there are a whole lot of fears that are driven in the organisation. And so if we want to try and get innovation and creativity going in the organisation, there needs to be a lot of focus on managing fear. We have a problem with our education system at the moment that it's tended to be a factory system. So we go into a classroom and we learn this is the way we do maths, this is the way we do English, this is the way we do science. And it's designed because we need to be efficient. We're dealing with thousands of kids. We're trying to handle one teacher, multiple students. So a factory line becomes the way we do education. When we go into the workforce, we sit down and introduce into the organisation, say this is where we do things, this is why we do things, and so on. Now, one of the problems is Einstein was thrown out of school because he kept asking why. That's what made him such a creative genius. So the hard part, we actually discourage students from asking why, and that's get taken back into the workforce. So we sit down and we're in a board meeting or in a management meeting and there's 20 people around the table trying to solve it. It's very difficult for somebody to put their hand up and say, I think we should look at doing this. People are fearful of judgment, the fear of looking stupid. Often when you make a comment and you make a bold statement, is that somebody's going, oh, we've tried that, we did that 10 years ago, it didn't work, and dismiss. So you have an environment where fear actually stops the creativity in the organisation. We have a situation also is that fear stops us from stopping bad projects. So a good example seen recently was a computer system in one of the government departments, and this system's been going on for 10 years. It's now gone over $1 billion and it still doesn't work. The hard part is that everybody feels that I'm going to get sacked if this project fails. So the fear is that if I say, right, it's not working, we've got to pull the plug, I'll lose my job, it's better to cover it up. So we see very good examples in companies where projects are going wrong and people's fear that they're going to be held accountable for it actually then drives them to cover it up. So if you really look at your organisation, there is considerable issues that are holding back the business, that are causing bad projects to continue when they should have been stopped, stopping the creativity of ideas, stopping innovations from moving forward, all driven by the prospect of fear. In the CEO Innovation Blueprint, we talk about integrated thinking, and one of the challenges is that we focused on the low-hanging fruit, what was quick and easy to get to solve a problem, to produce a product, to sell, and the quickest and easiest way to sell to the customer. That's tangible components of business. What's happened now is that the low-hanging fruit's been picked. So we have to, as businesses, go up the next level. And this is where integrated thinking is really important, because now when you have to deal with the intangible things, and when you really look at it, it's like the iceberg principle. An iceberg, 2/3 of the iceberg is hidden below the surface. And that is the biggest risk to shipping, is what's below the surface, not what you can see above the surface. And when you actually look at businesses, that's the same problem. The tangible component that we see, that's obvious to us, we've already solved, we've already dealt with. The tangible issues for customers we've already dealt with. What we haven't dealt with is the intangible stuff. That's the complicated, under the surface components. And the intangible is not this one big issue that we can solve. It's the sum of lots of small issues. So integrated thinking is about how I can pull lots of separate components together and solve them as one process to actually get the value for the company and to get the value for the customer, rather than just, I've got one big issue to solve, which is what we've done in the past. The CEO Innovation Blueprint actually talks about an issue of really the focus of innovation should be about profit. That's the whole point of business. And strange as it might seem, is that a lot of innovations don't focus on growth or profit for the business. The issues that we see, is an example is in the banking sector, where a lot of innovation is to try and keep up with what the competitors are doing. So when we look at internet banking products or smartphone apps, a lot of those are, well, the competitor's got a smartphone app, we need to have a smartphone app. And whilst it might be important to keep your customer base, it's not actually contributing to growth and profit. And when you think about a bank, its key profit line is lending. And then you look at the smartphone app, and there's nothing about lending on the smartphone app, then how is that smartphone app helping the bank to contribute to their profits? And it's often that we are driven by the excitement of the technology. I always liked the story from a long time ago. It's not exactly true, but it's a good story. As NASA spent $1 million trying to design a pen that works in space. Because basically pens rely on gravity, there's no gravity in space, so how does the ink run down to the nib? The Russians took a pencil. It solved the problem. It's a very good example. Sometimes we get caught up with the technology to solve a problem when there's actually a simpler solution. So again, it's very important to be focusing on profit, not on the best looking technology, not trying to keep up with the competitors. It's all about trying to make sure that when I invest money in this innovation, how will it drive profit and how will it drive growth? The CEO Innovation Blueprints is to focus on profit as a strategy for innovation. And it's very good example was in the early 90s, we had the dot-com boom and bust. And basically, any organisation that put the word E in front of it, like e-commerce, became popular. And it was getting caught up with the technology. We try very hard to talk with our clients is to step back from the technology and really focus on the business model. Those companies that survived the 90s dot-com crash, organisations like Amazon, actually had a very strong business model. Those that didn't have a business model, but were just playing around with the technology, failed very quickly. So it's very important, if we're trying to compete with other companies, is to actually focus first on the business model. Second is, what is the problem that we're solving for the customer? And then look at the innovations and the technologies that will work for us.
To get your copy of David Jordan's book, The CEO Innovation Blueprint, go to his website, theceoblueprint.com.au.